Hey friend, Chris here from MyLogicProRules.com, the website that helps you get the most you can out of Apple's Logic Pro. Today I'm going to attempt a tremendous task, and that is to give you a basic overview of Logic's Powerhouse synth, and that's Alchemy. Alchemy is huge, it's fantastic, offers so much versatility in terms of sound, and it sounds great. And this is going to be a woefully incomplete overview of Alchemy because Alchemy is huge, it deserves its own course. But my hope is today that if you have poked around Alchemy but have been completely intimidated by just how much depth there is to this synth, my hope is that today's video will help you get more familiar and comfortable with this awesome synth so you'll feel more comfortable to use Alchemy in your own songs and productions. So let's dig in. To start, let's get to know the interface of Alchemy itself. And there's actually 3 different tabs or views for you to work with. If we take a look at the upper left-hand corner here, we have the Browse tab, a Simplified tab, and the Advanced tab. The Browse tab, I think, is very helpful and a good place to start as it allows you to browse through the different presets of Alchemy based on categories and subcategories. Or you can just choose from the many different names in the 3,600 different presets that come with Alchemy. Then there's the Simplified tab, which provides you obviously a simplified way of interacting with Alchemy. So if you feel overwhelmed by the Advanced tab, it may be better for you to start out with the Simple tab as it's very reminiscent of the much more inviting Smart controls, as we can see right here between the 2 tabs. And then lastly, we have the Advanced tab, which obviously is no holds barred, and you can get stuck into just about any detail of this amazing synth. Starting with the Browse tab, we can see here on the right-hand side all the different titles for all the presets that came with Alchemy or any presets that you've created as well. You can simply select a preset by clicking on any one of these names. If we open up the musical typing, we can take a listen to some of these different presets. And honestly, if you think about it, though it says 3,600 presets right up here in the upper right-hand corner at the time of this video, we also have the Transform pad, which allows you to adjust many different controls across the synth simultaneously. So you can click on any one of these pads to focus on that particular preset, or swing the blue box here in between the 8 pads. So if you think about it, we have 8 pads times 3,600 presets. There's really more like 30,000 presets that come with Alchemy, and that's not even including in between each of the blocks. So if we take a listen, from there, you can narrow down the presets based on 4 different categories across the interface, starting with category. So basically choosing between various different instrument types, such as brass or drums, soundscapes, or even vocals. You can further narrow down the presets based on subcategory. So in this case, we could choose between female or mixed. We also have genre. So if you're looking for something that maybe fits an orchestral arrangement or a world instrument, or something else entirely. And lastly, we have timbre. So if you're looking for something maybe kind of muted, that's not too aggressive, or you're looking for something that's nice and fat. If we take a listen, that is horrifying. But nonetheless, there are all these different categories, and you can actually adjust the focus of the last 2 categories just by clicking on the disclosure triangle. And there are further categories such as articulation, newer than, older than, sound designer, sound library, or even user tags. Which brings up the fact that there's this entire section below the presets that provide the opportunity to include comments about particular sounds, add your own user tags, and we can create a new user tag just by clicking on user tag or delete user tags as well. And if we go into edit, you yourself can in fact adjust the different categories and subcategories that were assigned to a preset or add your own user tag. So if we add a user tag, let's say scary, and I hit return, and now it's part of the user tags for this preset, we can also add a comment and make sure to say, yeah, that's definitely scary. And if we click close, we can now see that comment scary and the user tag scary have been applied to this Vox Vinyl Effects 2. And you can see it under user tags right here in this category. And what's beautiful as well is you can search for a particular preset. So I'll choose organ. As I want to focus on a particular organ sound, we just need to clear out some of these category options by selecting all. And if we go to the top, I'm going to use the 60s vintage organ. And because I like this sound so much, I'm actually going to assign a rating to it so that if I'm somewhere else in the interface, let's say right here, if we click on rating, now the presets have been arranged based on rating. We click it again. Now the rating is all the way at the bottom for the highest rating that I've set. So that can be really helpful for navigating through different presets and sounds. All right, let's choose our organ. And though for many it might be more comfortable to dig into the simple tab of Alchemy, I'm going to stick with the advanced tab as I think it'll be a little more helpful to many of us. After choosing a preset, I think the next best place to dig into is the performance or transform pad of your sound, as there's obviously a lot more opportunities available to you for sonic creativity. As we slide the selector across the performance tab, we can see the modulating controls to the right of the transform pad being adjusted. And that's what's so cool about the transform pad. Take a listen to this sound. And if I navigate around, I love how haunting this instrument sounds. But you're not just stuck with what the transform pad delivers to you. You can in fact adjust all of the different parameters across the instrument, and any adjustments that you make to the right of the transform pad will be committed to that section of the transform pad. So maybe I want a little more chorus for this performance. So if we dial this up, so now you can see that the value has been set to 21.3%. If we make adjustments across the interface, we can see, the chorus knob is going all over the place. But if we bring it back to simple, hover our mouse, 21.3. These control knobs are similar to smart controls as they give you easy access to modulating different key controls in Alchemy. This includes the XY pads as well as the attack, decay, sustain, and release of our sound. After that, we have a built-in arpeggiator in Alchemy, so you can easily create sequences just by holding down certain keys, adjusting the mode either globally for the entire sound or for individual sound sources of your Alchemy patch, which we'll dig into momentarily. So if we take a look, we can bring up the mode. Just going up based on the notes that I've selected, or going down, up, down, up, as played, or random, and as a chord. And we can also adjust obviously different patterns and go up in octaves if we so choose, and adjust the rate. In this case, a 16th note rate. And lastly, Alchemy has its own effect chain as well, so you basically have plugins within this instrument that you can apply again globally to the entire sound or to the individual sound sources, which there are none yet. But in the case of the main, we have the mod effects. If you click on the next available plugin, the view changes to the 3-band EQ or the acoustic reverb, or you can use this slider here to navigate around the chain. As I mentioned a moment ago, Alchemy is made up of many different sound sources, and this can be seen in the advanced tab. Right at the top, we click on global, or you can select the individual sound sources. So in this case, we can see that this particular sound and preset in Alchemy is made up of two different sounds. We have a 60s transistor organ, or a 60s transistor organ vibrato. We can turn off or turn on any of the different sounds available to us, which there are 4, A, B, C, and D. If I turn off B, we take a listen. And let's turn off that arpeggiator. Or just listen to just the vibrato, which there is none right now based on the particular area that we are on the transform pad here. But you can morph between the different sonic sounds using the morph tab. So you can see that we're all the way to the left on the A side. If we move this over to the B side, there we go. Let's actually navigate this to the center so we can hear both A and B simultaneously. At the global level, you're able to adjust 4 different parameters for your individual sound sources, which right now we only have 2. We can adjust the volume for each of our sound sources just by dragging up or down. Adjust the tuning. Which is pretty cool. We can pan these sounds to different areas. And we can also adjust how much of the sound is being sent to the different filters in Alchemy, which there are 2 main filters. At this moment, there's only one filter that's turned on, but we can turn on the other if we so choose and flip between them. So if we set this filter maybe to a bandpass, edgy, take a listen. And we can adjust the cutoff for that filter, the resonance, or the drive as well. But taking a look at the individual tabs, we can further refine the performance of these individual sound sources by clicking on the A through D tabs. Obviously, we have our controls for volume and pan, but for the tuning option, we have both now coarse and fine adjustments, and we can also adjust where the sound begins. So if we take a look at the waveform here, even better, you can solo individual sound sources, so you really can get a sense of what that particular tab actually sounds like without all the other sounds. We can adjust this from stereo to mono by clicking on the circle here. We can also reverse the sound. And you can further edit the sound as well within Alchemy, which you can see there's quite a bit to dig into. Let's close out of this for now, and let's create 2 more tabs for our instrument by going to the global tab here. I'll turn on the C tab, and I'll actually click on the title, which says additive, but we're gonna go to load VA, and we're just gonna load a basic sine wave. Take a listen. And for the D tab here, let's close the musical typing, open the Apple Loops library, and navigate to this jazzy drum set. If you drag in any audio file or region into Alchemy, there's actually 4 different tabs for you to synthesize a sample within Alchemy to add as another sound source. I'm actually going to load it using the sampler within Alchemy, but we have 4 different engines: additive, spectral, granular, and sampler. And now let's take a look at the morph pad here so we can hear all these tabs together. As you can hear, we're now navigating through the 4 different sounds that we've loaded into Alchemy for this preset. I'm actually going to navigate to the D tab here, and I'm going to set the key scale for the drum pattern that we have here. You can see in the waveform view to off. Pretty cool. Now the pitch of our drum sample won't change with the key that's played. And of course, we can go to edit and we can adjust the start and end times for the sample if we wanted to, just by clicking and dragging on the start and end banners within the waveform view here. And we can zoom in on the waveform using the slider. And if we take a look and a listen, and you can also adjust which keys load or play this drum patch. And we can isolate this to particular keys if we so chose. But I'm actually going to leave it to every key, and I'm going to back up all of my adjustments here. So we're working with the entire drum sound. Close this out. Set this back. As I mentioned, of course, we can add an arpeggiator to either this instrument globally or to the individual sound sources of A, B, C, and D. So if we take a listen, pretty cool. But let's turn this off for all of the sound sources and instead just arpeggiate the drum sound. And also we can adjust the effect chain for the entire instrument or just for the individual sound sources. So I'm actually going to introduce for our drums a reverb. Now the important thing here is that we need to set up our jazzy drum set to be sent to a filter that includes the effects chain that we have here. So at the moment, if we listen to just the jazzy drum set, I'll turn everything else off. We won't hear any reverb, even though I've set the mix to 100%. Right? So we actually need to go to the filter option here, where we switch between filter 1 or 2, filter 1 or 2. And let's now navigate to filter 1 effects D. Now we can switch between filter 1 or our effect. Now we can introduce the rest of our sounds here. And you can also choose to send this effect chain for that particular sound source to the entire effect chain for the main section here. Or you can say, no, I don't want to send it to the main effect chain at all. I want it to be separate. We're going to send it to the main effect chain for now. So obviously we've dug into so much in Alchemy already, and there's so much to dig into more. But the last piece that I want to give you is the idea of modulation across Alchemy. You can see that certain controls and knobs have this orange ring around them. And that's because these particular parameters have been connected to one of our modulation sources. So as we perform different notes and chords with this preset, we're going to see a white dot floating across the orange ring, which basically is wiggling that control. So it's not remaining static, it's moving around based on a particular modulation source. So if we take a look at some of these controls, so you're seeing the master volume flipping around, also the tune. If we take a look at the performance tab here, we're seeing a lot more movement. The idea of modulation is kind of intimidating, but in my mind, modulation just means basically a control is being wiggled around based on a different parameter. We have these 6 different modulation panel types, starting with LFO, or a low frequency oscillator. So the wiggling goes in a very fluid motion, up and down and up and down. We have AHDSR, which is basically the envelope of the sound: attack, hold, decay, sustain, and release. We have MSEG, which is multiple segment envelope generator. So you can basically create custom curves within a curve just by clicking on the view here. We have the sequencer, which is another arpeggiator that you can use for wiggling around different controls. Envelope follower, and the mod map, which is really just a process that allows you to adjust the output of one of these modulators. And then we have the modulation rack here, which will tell you what controls are being modulated just by clicking on those controls. So we can see here for the cutoff for the filter 1, that control 2 and the LFO1 sine wave are controlling this parameter. I know modulation can feel very abstract, so let's actually create our own modulation source by right-clicking on the pan knob in the master section, which allows you to adjust the volume of the entire preset, the panning of the entire preset, the coarse tuning, and also the fine tuning. We right-click the pan knob, we can go to add modulation, we can go to LFO, and the first LFO sine wave. We can now see that this sine wave is going to modulate the panning of our sound. We just need to adjust the depth so that it's adjusted over time. Take a listen and a look. And if you want to test out a before and after of that particular modulation, just turn it off just to see. Turn it back on. And you can also clear the modulation by right-clicking and clearing it. Of course, we've done a lot to this particular preset, so maybe we want to save it as our own preset. We can call this CV60s Vintage Organ. Now we can navigate and find it within the preset menu here. And also, if you want to start from square one and create your own presets, we can go to File within Alchemy and initialize the preset. So this is a bare bones, no sound sources loaded except for a saw wave, which is a bit intense. So let's turn down the filter cutoff. All right, a lot better. And we'll introduce maybe also like a pulse. Great. And let's just drop in some effects real quick. So we can add maybe fat compressor, maybe a delay, and a reverb. But as you can see, we don't have anything programmed to the transform pads or the XY pads or any of the controls. And if you feel a bit overwhelmed trying to create all of these modulated sources and controls yourself, you can in fact click on the settings at the bottom of Alchemy and select Auto Assign All. And Alchemy will automatically assign these different controls and pads for you. So we can actually start to make these adjustments over time. Which is pretty sick. So obviously we've dug into a lot when it comes to Alchemy, and I don't think there's any question. There's so much in this instrument to dig into. But I'm hoping that this video today will help you feel more comfortable getting stuck into Alchemy and trying things out and programming controls as you see fit and coming up with your own awesome presets. So I hope today's video was helpful for you. If it was, as always, I highly recommend subscribing to the channel, Wide Logic Pro Rules, or subscribing on the website itself, widelogicprorules.com. Every week I'm posting new videos, emails, or posts to help you get the most you can out of Apple's Logic Pro. Thanks so much.